The widow's new wife. Long ago, in a peaceful riverside village called Nolola, where the breeze carried the smell of fresh fish and wild mangoes, there lived a kind-hearted girl named Amoni. She had eyes like the morning sky and a voice as soft as river water. But what made her truly beautiful was her heart. Amoni's father, Kofu, was a humble fisherman. Every morning before sunrise, he would paddle his narrow canoe out into the great river, casting his net with skill passed down from his own father. Kofu was respected in the village not just for his catch, but for his honesty and humility. He had raised Amoni alone ever since her mother passed away when she was very young. Amoni grew up with calloused hands and a warm smile. She helped the elderly wash clothes at the riverbank, carried baskets for tired mothers, and shared whatever she had, even when she had little. Whenever people spoke of her, they used words like pure, good, and blessed. But even in the most peaceful villages, storms can begin with the softest wind. One morning, Kofu returned from the distant market across the hills. He had been away for several days, and Amoni ran to greet him, expecting stories and dried spices. But beside him stood a tall, elegant woman wrapped in flowing cloths the color of ash and ember. Her name was Deka. Her skin glowed like polished obsidian, and her eyes shimmered like a pond under starlight. Her voice was rich, her smile warm, but it didn't reach her eyes. And when she looked at Amoni, it was as though she were measuring her. "I have taken a new wife," Kofu announced, his face glowing with joy. "This is Deka. She has a daughter named Rua, a little older than you. From today, they are your family." Amoni blinked, taken aback, but bowed politely. "Welcome," she said with a smile. "I will do my best to make you feel at home." Deka's daughter, Rua, stepped forward slowly. She was striking, with skin like sun-kissed bronze and eyes that flickered with pride. Her hair was braided tightly with golden beads, and her nose tilted upward just slightly, as if she were used to looking down at others. They moved into the small hut, and from the beginning, things began to shift. Deka placed a large, ornate wooden trunk in the center of the main room. It was old, carved with strange markings and sealed with iron clasps. She never let anyone touch it. Whenever Amoni asked about it, Deka would simply say, "That is from a place beyond this land. It holds things for women who know the old ways." Rua often wore necklaces made of shells and bracelets with tiny bells that rang when she walked. She didn't help with chores, didn't join the other girls at the river, and never thanked Amoni for the food she cooked. Still, Amoni remained kind. She told herself that they were adjusting, that they would soon feel like family. But the village whispered. Old women at the well muttered behind their hands. One claimed she had seen Deka walking into the forest on a moonless night, her robes dragging through the leaves. Another swore Deka had spoken to something that was not human near the sacred tree. A snake followed her home once, someone whispered. And it didn't bite. The rumors reached Amoni's ears, but she brushed them aside. Her father looked happier than he had in years. He laughed more, hummed as he fixed his nets, and often spoke of how nice it was to come home to a warm meal and a soft voice. For that alone, Amoni tried to ignore her unease. Until one afternoon, when a special guest came to their home. His name was Mzitando, the village elder and keeper of old stories. His beard was white as flour, and his walking stick bore symbols carved by ancestors long gone. He rarely left his hut these days, but that afternoon, he arrived unannounced and sat on a stool near Amoni. He accepted a bowl of millet porridge from her hands and looked at her closely. Then he spoke in a voice like rustling dry leaves. "You are a child of light," he said. "Your heart is clean. But the wind carries strange scents in this house. Something old. Something dangerous." Amoni froze. "What do you mean?" "I mean this," he said. "You will face a test. A great one. You must remember who you are. Hold to your goodness. You must not break. Amani bowed her head respectfully, but fear fluttered in her chest like trapped birds. Mzitando rose with effort and hobbled away. He didn't look back. That evening, Amani watched her stepmother through the curtain of the cooking area. Deka sat still as a statue, her fingers working a string of black beads, her lips moving silently. Then her eyes opened, and she stared directly at Amani. "I hope you are listening well," Deka said softly. "There are many things you do not understand yet." Amani didn't answer. But deep inside her, something cold began to grow. In the days that followed, Deka's mask began to slip. She insisted on controlling the household. She rearranged everything, hung charms above the door, sprinkled powders in the corners, and muttered blessings in a language Amani didn't know. At first, Kofu noticed nothing. Deka kept her charm around him. She smiled, laughed, and massaged his tired shoulders. But the moment he left for the river, she changed. She gave Amani impossible chores, scrubbing the floors with rough stones, fetching water from the farthest well, pounding millet until her hands blistered. If Amani rested, even for a moment, Deka's voice would snap through the air like a whip. And Ruwa? She did nothing. She sat beneath the mango tree, brushing her hair and looking at her reflection in the river's surface. "You will be somebody one day," Deka often said to her daughter. "You were born for greatness. You will marry into power, not fish." Amani began to notice other strange things. At night, Deka would sometimes leave the hut after Kofu fell asleep. Amani once peeked through the curtain and saw her stepmother slip into the woods, barefoot, carrying a bowl of ash and herbs. One night, Amani followed. She stayed in the shadows, her bare feet silent. She watched Deka stop under a twisted old tree. There, the woman began to chant in a voice not entirely her own. Her body swayed. The wind picked up. And something moved in the grass, something long, slithering, and shining like wet metal. Amani gasped. Deka turned. Her eyes glowed, for just a second, with something not human. Amani ran. She didn't speak of it. Not to her father. Not to her neighbors. But she knew, now, that Deka was not just strange. She was dangerous. One afternoon, while washing clothes at the river, Amani's friend Shani came and sat beside her. "I heard something," Shani whispered. "The old healer said Deka has been seen talking to spirits. That she owns books made from animal skin. And that she might be looking for a sacrifice." Amani dropped the cloth she was holding. "A sacrifice? For what?" Shani looked around. Then leaned close. "There's a legend. A spirit that lives deep in the forest. A serpent with the power to grant riches and strength to those who bring it a human bride." Amani's stomach turned. "You don't think," she began. "I don't know," Shani interrupted. "But promise me you'll be careful. Watch her. Watch Ruwa too. Something is coming." Amani didn't sleep that night. She lay awake, staring at the roof, listening to the sound of her father snoring softly beside Deka. Something was coming. And whatever it was, it had already begun. The pact with the serpent spirit. The rainy season came early to the village of Nolola. Thunder rumbled across the sky like ancient drums, and the great river rose with each passing night, swelling with water and secrets. Crops trembled under silver storms, and frogs sang louder than usual. The villagers said the spirits were restless. Inside the small hut that Amani called home, the air grew heavier. Deka, her stepmother, moved like a shadow through the rooms, her eyes always searching, her voice low and cold. She barely spoke to Kofu anymore, except to ask for coins or herbs from the market. Her attention had shifted entirely to her daughter, Ruwa. "You must walk taller," Deka would say to Ruwa as she adjusted the gold-collared wrap around her waist. "Speak like royalty. Move like someone meant to be served." Ruwa, always quick to admire her own reflection in polished gourds, soaked in every word. She smiled more often now, but only to herself. She began refusing to eat food prepared by Amoni. She wore a thin veil around her face, saying it was to keep the common dust from touching her skin. "You are being prepared," Deka whispered one night, braiding Rua's hair with black threads laced in gold. "He will come for you soon. And you will rise higher than all the girls in this village." "Who is he?" Rua asked. "You always speak of him, but I haven't met him." "He is a prince," Deka replied, her voice as smooth as oil. "A ruler beyond the forest. His gifts are many, his power unmatched. You will wear silks and eat from golden plates. But only if you remain obedient. Only if you are ready when he arrives." Rua smiled, her pride blooming like a poisonous flower. But she never asked why her prince never showed himself during the day. Deka had learned of the serpent spirit of Zingaya many years ago, from the hushed pages of a forbidden book passed between witches in the far mountains. The spirit was as old as the earth itself, neither fully beast nor god. It dwelled in the deepest parts of the forest, in caverns few dared approach. Legends said the serpent could grant boundless riches, endless beauty, and immortality. But he demanded loyalty. And he demanded a bride. A living, breathing woman. Someone strong enough to survive the wedding, but pure enough to please the spirit's ancient hunger. Deka had spent years preparing. She knew Rua was perfect, not because of her goodness, but because of her beauty and pride. She would be easy to offer. Easy to trick. Each night, when the moon vanished and the wind howled across the treetops, Deka slipped away from the hut. She moved silently through wet leaves, carrying a clay bowl filled with black ash and bone powder. Her destination was always the same. The Nkolo tree. The oldest tree in the region. It stood twisted and hollow in the center of the forest, its roots like arms reaching out across the earth. No one in the village went near it. They said it whispered at night. They said it remembered every soul who dared call upon dark spirits. Deka had called it many times. And on the seventh night of the seventh moon, her call was finally answered. That night, the rain fell like knives. Thunder split the sky in jagged bolts, and the forest came alive with ghostly wind. Amoni had watched Deka leave, wrapped in a cloak of silver feathers. Curiosity burned in Amoni's chest, but fear held her in place. Instead, she stayed in the hut, scrubbing the floor, while Rua lounged nearby, applying honey oil to her feet and humming a strange melody. Amoni noticed that the smell of herbs and incense was thicker than usual. It clung to Rua's skin like perfume, heavy and unsettling. When Kofu returned home that night, Deka had not yet returned. She reappeared just before dawn, dripping with water but strangely smiling. Her eyes gleamed with triumph. Far away, under the Nkolo tree, something monstrous had happened. Deka had stood barefoot in the mud, arms raised to the swirling sky, and chanted in the forgotten language of the serpent priest. "Great one of scales and shadows, ancient keeper of the underworld, I summon thee." Her voice rose above the storm. "I bring you a gift. A bride. A daughter of beauty and pride. Come forth. Accept my offering. And in return, shower me with the riches of the old world." The wind died. The forest fell silent. Then the roots of the Nkolo tree began to move. They coiled and twisted. The ground shook. And from a hole beneath the tree slithered a glowing shape, tall, broad-shouldered, and wrapped in a living serpent that pulsed with light. The spirit had arrived. Its skin shimmered like dark bronze. Its eyes glowed gold. The serpent around its neck hissed, and every blade of grass bent to its breath. Deka fell to her knees. "You have called me," the spirit said, its voice like 1,000 whispers. "Where is the bride?" "She will be ready," Deka said, trembling but proud. "My daughter, Rua. She will be yours." The spirit raised one hand, revealing a ring, silver, forged from a coiled serpent scale, with a red gem that pulsed like a heartbeat. "This will bind her to me," the spirit hissed. "When you place it upon her finger during the ritual, the bond will be complete. If she refuses, the price shall fall on you." "I accept," Decca whispered. The pact was sealed. Back in the village, strange things began to happen. Chickens refused to lay eggs. The river turned murky. One child woke screaming about a snake in her dreams. And Amoni's life grew harder. Decca barked at her constantly. Rua strutted like a queen, speaking of her future husband, and how she would soon be taken away to a kingdom in the clouds. She no longer washed her own feet or combed her own hair. "I will be married soon," Rua said smugly one morning. "And when I am, you'll be nothing but a servant in my palace." Amoni said nothing. But she noticed things, the serpent carvings hidden under Rua's pillow, the way Decca now sprinkled black dust into her food, and the faint sound of hissing that sometimes echoed from the storage trunk. Something was building. The air grew thicker each day. And then, one night, Amoni woke from a dream. She had seen the Nkolo tree. The serpent. The glowing man. And Rua, standing frozen in fear, her hand trembling as a ring was placed upon her finger. Amoni sat up in her bed, gasping. She didn't know how or why, but she knew the dream was a warning. The spirit was coming. And Rua's marriage would not be to a prince, but to something far worse. The ritual of rain and the hidden witness. The air was thick with heat that afternoon, though clouds gathered above the village of Nolola like sleeping beasts ready to roar. Thunder growled faintly in the distance. Even the birds had quieted, and the river, usually full of life and chatter, seemed to hush its waters. Inside the fisherman's hut, Decca moved with strange urgency. Her hands worked quickly, packing cloth bundles and humming a song that wasn't meant for human ears. Amoni stood by the hearth, grinding dried cassava. Her eyes kept drifting to her stepmother's strange movements. Then, Decca turned and called out in her smooth, commanding voice. "Amoni." "Yes, stepmother." "There is a fruit, Namaro, it grows near the stone hill in the forest. I need it to prepare a blessing offering before the rain begins. Go now, before the storm falls." Amoni blinked. The forest. Now. She looked out the window. The wind had begun to rise, bending tall grass and stirring dust. A storm was clearly coming. "Can it wait until morning?" she asked, gently. Decca smiled, her eyes sharp. "No. If you truly care about this family, you will go now." Something in Amoni's heart shivered. But she nodded and reached for her cloak. "I will go." As she stepped outside, she passed Rua. Her stepsister was sitting silently by the window, her usual smirk gone. Her face was blank, her hands resting stiffly in her lap. Amoni thought to say something but didn't. The door closed behind her. The forest greeted her with whispering leaves and rising wind. Branches swayed like dancers in slow motion. The deeper Amoni walked, the darker the sky became. She didn't know why she was sent to fetch fruit that didn't even grow during storm season. The more she thought about it, the more her worry grew. Her stepmother had wanted her out of the house, out of the way. And then she remembered the dream. The Nkolo tree. The ring. Rua standing helpless in the storm. Amoni's feet began to move faster, forgetting the fruit. Her heart pounded with something deeper than fear, a knowing. She turned left at the old termite mound. Right near the stone with 3 claw marks. Her father had taught her the forest paths well, but tonight, nothing felt familiar. The trees leaned in too close. The air grew thick. The wind howled louder. Then, through the curtain of rain, light. Faint. Flickering. Like fire dancing beneath a canopy. She crept closer, pushing through branches until she reached a clearing. And there it was. The Nkolo tree. Its ancient trunk stretched wide like an open mouth, its roots curled like claws in the earth. At its base stood Deka and Rua. Rua was dressed in shimmering red robes embroidered with gold. Her hair had been oiled and braided. Around her neck hung heavy beads. Her face was pale under the glow of torchlight. She stood still, but her hands trembled. Deka circled her slowly, chanting words older than the wind. And then the shadows shifted. From the hollow of the tree, something slithered forward. A glowing figure, tall and unnaturally graceful, emerged. He wore robes made of living scales, and around his shoulders coiled a massive serpent. Its tongue flicked. Its eyes gleamed gold. The serpent spirit of Zingaya had arrived. Amoni dropped to her knees behind a twisted root, her breath caught in her throat. She dared not move. The serpent stepped closer to Rua, raising one long-fingered hand. In his palm sat a ring, silver and black, shaped like a snake biting its own tail. "Are you prepared?" the spirit hissed. Rua opened her mouth, but no words came. Her eyes darted to Deka, who nodded sharply. "She is ready," Deka said for her. The spirit stepped forward, lifting Rua's hand. His touch left a shimmer on her skin. But before the ring could slide over her finger, the serpent around his neck uncoiled and slithered down his arm, hissing as it reached her face. Its forked tongue flicked across her cheek. Rua whimpered. The spirit smiled. "She is lovely." At that moment, the spirit's form shifted. His mouth stretched wider than it should have. His eyes narrowed into slits. His skin shimmered, then peeled, revealing scales underneath. In seconds, he no longer resembled a man, but a towering half-snake, half-human creature with a voice like a scream through stone. Rua screamed. She stumbled backward, her arms flailing. "No. You said he was a prince." Deka stepped forward, grabbing her shoulders. "He is. Do not be foolish. This is your destiny. Embrace it." "I don't want this," Rua cried. But Deka's grip tightened. "You will obey. Do you want to throw away the gift promised to us? Wealth. Power." From her hiding place, Amoni could no longer stay silent. She stood. "Let her go." Her voice was soft but clear. It cut through the storm like lightning. Deka turned in fury. Rua gasped. "You!" Deka hissed. "What are you doing here?" Amoni stepped into the torchlight, soaked with rain, trembling but firm. "This is wrong. You tricked her. You lied. You made a pact that she never agreed to." The serpent spirit turned his glowing eyes toward Amoni. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he smiled. "You," he whispered. "You are not like the others." Amoni stood tall. "She doesn't belong to you." The serpent coiled his massive form, moving closer. "You speak with boldness. But you are alone. You cannot stop what has been set in motion." Rua collapsed to the ground, sobbing. "I don't want to be his bride, please, I don't." Deka rushed at Amoni, her face twisted with rage. "You've ruined everything." But before her hand could strike Amoni's cheek, a loud crack split the air. Lightning. It struck a tree near the edge of the clearing. The ground shook. A rush of wind swept through the ritual space. And then, another voice. "Enough." Out of the darkness stepped an old man, his staff glowing with etched symbols of the ancestors. Mzitando. His robe fluttered in the wind. His face was calm, but his eyes burned like coals. "This ritual is cursed," he said. "This offering is false. And your heart, Deka, is black with greed." The serpent hissed. "You cannot undo a pact once sealed." But Mzitando struck his staff against the ground, and the earth glowed beneath their feet. "The ancestors are watching," he said. And they do not approve. In that moment, everything changed. The torches flared and blew out. The rain poured harder. The clearing filled with the cries of night creatures, as though the whole forest was bearing witness. Decca screamed and began to chant, her arms flailing, calling on her spirits. But the staff's glow pushed back her words like wind to smoke. The serpent spirit howled. He lunged at Harmony, fangs bared. She did not run. She stood her ground. And the light of the elder's staff wrapped around her like armor. You cannot have her, Tando declared. And you will not take another innocent soul. The serpent screamed. Its form flickered, twisted, then broke apart into shadows and light. The snake coiled around it hissed one last time before vanishing into the soil. A quiet fell over the clearing. The storm stopped. The rain ceased. And only the breath of the living remained. Decca collapsed to her knees, sobbing. Ruwa called against the tree, shaking. Harmony knelt beside her and wrapped her arms around her trembling stepsister. Tando placed a hand on Harmony's shoulder. You were brave, he said. And you have saved more than you know. Harmony looked at Ruwa's tear-streaked face and whispered, It's over. You're safe. Ruwa nodded slowly. I thought I wanted everything. But I didn't know what it would cost. The elder turned to Decca, who stared at him with hollow eyes. You broke the balance, he said. Now the spirits will decide your fate. And as the clouds parted, revealing stars for the first time that night, a soft wind blew through the Nkolo tree. A warning. A judgment. And perhaps, a beginning clash of light and darkness. For a moment, the clearing stood still. The storm had paused, but the tension in the air crackled like dry leaves waiting for a spark. Harmony's breath came in sharp pulls as she crouched beside Ruwa, who still trembled in her arms. Across the clearing, the serpent spirit's glowing form flickered between man and beast, its gold eyes burning hotter than fire. And Decca, her stepmother, now fully exposed in her darkness, rose to her feet, soaked from rain, her face twisted in fury. You, she screamed, pointing at Harmony with a shaking hand. You ruined everything. A gust of wind tore through the trees. Branches creaked and twisted. The animals of the forest, birds, monkeys, insects, let out a chorus of panic. Something old had been awakened. The Nkolo tree groaned as though remembering an ancient battle. You don't understand what you've done. Decca continued, her voice growing hoarse. We were promised glory. We were chosen. You chose greed over love, Harmony said quietly, helping Ruwa to stand. And now you must face the truth. The serpent hissed, its voice layered with fury and sorrow. I was promised a bride, it growled. A pact was made. A soul for power. That is the way. Then the earth shook. A ring of snakes burst from the underbrush, hissing and circling the clearing. Shadows twisted along the trees, forming faces that leered and mocked. The serpent spirit raised its clawed hand, and the cursed ring hovered above its palm, pulsing like a living heart. Decca joined him at the center of the ritual circle, her arms raised once again. Grant us your power, she cried. Take what is owed. But another voice cut through the darkness. Enough. Tando stepped into the clearing, staff in hand, robes whipping in the wind. His eyes, usually warm and wise, now glowed with white ancestral fire. You tread on sacred ground, spirit, he said. And you, Decca, have summoned what was never meant to return. You cannot stop this, old man, Decca spat. You are from the world of dying embers. We are of fire reborn. Tando struck the base of his staff to the ground. A blinding light burst from the carvings, forcing the shadows to retreat. The ancestors hear your lies, he said. And they have come to answer. The wind screamed. Lightning tore open the sky. The serpent spirit rose high, scales gleaming with wet light, and from its body flew dozens of illusions, phantom brides with empty eyes, ghostly hands reaching out, voices chanting in forgotten tongues. Snakes slithered from every direction, coiling around tree trunks, twisting through the grass, forming walls of teeth and scales. Amoni stood in front of Rua, arms wide. "No," she whispered, trembling but unshaken. "You will not take her." The serpent spirit hissed in amusement. "Even now, you defend her. After the way she treated you. After how her mother cursed you." "Because I am not like you," Amoni said. "I won't trade kindness for hatred." The serpent lunged, but a wall of glowing light burst up between it and the girls, cast from Tando's staff. "Your fight is with me now," the elder said. And with that, the battle truly began. Tando lifted his staff high, and from the symbols carved deep into its wood, ancestral spirits emerged, shimmering figures of warriors, mothers, elders, and guardians. They surrounded the clearing, their feet never touching the ground, their eyes calm and stern. The serpent spirit screeched and summoned a wave of spectral snakes that rushed toward them, but the ancestral figures raised their hands, and the snakes dissolved like smoke in sunlight. Deka screamed, casting handfuls of black powder into the air. Dark shapes rose from the ground, shadowed beasts, born of her hatred and greed. They clawed toward Amoni and Rua, but the ancestral spirits formed a protective circle around them. Amoni held Rua tightly, whispering prayers. Rua, still sobbing, clung to her for dear life. "I didn't know," she cried. "I thought I would be rich. I didn't know it would be like this." "It's not too late to be better," Amoni said. "But first, we survived this night." In the heart of the battle, the serpent and Tando clashed. With every strike of Tando's staff, light poured across the ground, burning away the serpent's illusions. With every hiss and surge of the serpent's tail, the roots of the Nkolo tree split and groaned, trying to resist the darkness being forced into them. "You were once a protector," Tando cried. "A guardian of balance. How far you've fallen." "I am what the world made me," the serpent snarled. "I offer power. I punish weakness. That is my truth." "And the ancestors offer justice," Tando answered. He planted his staff into the earth and whispered an ancient chant known only to the chosen elders. The ground cracked open beneath the serpent spirit. Chains of light burst forth, spiritual bonds crafted from the voices of 1,000 ancestors. They wrapped around the spirit's body, pulling it down, down into the earth. The spirit shrieked, writhing, but the chains held. The cursed ring above its hand cracked, first a fracture, then a shatter. It exploded into dust, and the illusions vanished with it. The circle of snakes broke apart. The storm above faded. The serpent spirit let out one final scream that echoed for miles. Then it was gone. Sealed. Banished. Silence. The firelight flickered gently once more. Rain fell softly now, like tears from the sky. The ancestral spirits bowed their heads and faded into the trees. Tando lowered his staff. "It is done," he said, his voice low. But Deka laughed. A cold, broken laugh. "You think this is over," she spat, stepping toward them. "I gave everything. I did what others feared to do. I claimed the old power. And I would do it again." Amoni stepped forward. "You betrayed your own daughter. You tried to give her away like meat to a monster." Deka's eyes burned. "She would have ruled with the gods." "You would have destroyed her," Amoni replied. "And yourself." Tando raised his hand. "The ancestors have made their judgment. You must face the end you earned." A gust of wind encircled Deka. Her body froze. She screamed, but it was too late. Scales began to form on her skin. Her limbs stiffened. Her mouth stretched into a hiss. Her hair melted into coils. Her eyes turned yellow and unblinking. Before their eyes, Deka transformed into a massive dark serpent. No longer a woman. No longer a mother. Just a creature of darkness, cursed by her own ambition. With a final glare at Amoni and Tando, the serpent slithered toward the shadows of the forest. No one stopped her. She vanished beneath the leaves. Gone. But not forgotten. Ruwa dropped to her knees. I never wanted this, she whispered. I thought I deserved more than this village. I thought power meant happiness. Amoni knelt beside her. Happiness comes from love. From being true to yourself. Not from dark pacts and broken promises. Ruwa looked up, tears shining. You still protect me, even after everything. Amoni smiled softly. Because you are still my sister. Mzitando stepped forward, laying a hand on both girls' shoulders. Tonight, the forest saw truth. The darkness was pushed back because of courage, not magic. Let this be remembered. He looked to the trees, then to the stars. The ancestors are watching. And they are pleased. Redemption and river light. The storm had passed. The forest stood still once more, the trees whispering like old storytellers remembering what had happened beneath the Nkolo tree. The serpent spirit was gone, the cursed ring shattered, and the woman who had betrayed her own blood now slithered somewhere in the wilderness, cursed by her own greed. The village of Nolola slowly returned to its rhythms, but something had changed, something deep and permanent. 2 days after the battle, Kofu returned. He had traveled to a faraway market, unaware that his home had nearly become the stage for an ancient horror. When he stepped off the canoe and heard the villagers whispering his name with wide eyes, he rushed to his hut, fear in his bones. There, under the tall mango tree, he found his daughter Amoni, sitting beside Ruwa, who was braiding palm leaves in silence. Amoni, Kofu breathed, dropping his fishing net and running to her. Child, are you hurt? Amoni rose and embraced him tightly. I'm safe, Baba. But much has happened. And so she told him. Not everything, some truths are too heavy to speak aloud, but enough for him to understand. She told him about the serpent spirit, the cursed pact, and how Ruwa had nearly been taken. She told him about Mzitando, the battle, and how Deka had been lost to the darkness. Kofu's eyes filled with tears. He sat down heavily beside the fire pit and buried his face in his hands. I failed you, he whispered. I brought danger into our home. I let my loneliness blind me. Amoni reached out and touched his arm. You wanted love, Baba. There is no shame in that. You didn't know. None of us did. He looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw not just a daughter, but a woman who had faced spirits and shadows and chosen light. You have a strength in you I never imagined, he said. You carry your mother's heart, but even she would be amazed by your courage. Ruwa, too, had changed. The pride that once curled her lips had faded. In its place was something softer, something shaped by fear, humility, and a chance at something new. On the 3rd day after the storm, she approached Amoni as the morning sun warmed the roof of their hut. Amoni, she said, her voice quiet. May I speak with you? Amoni nodded and put aside the laundry she was folding. Ruwa took a breath. I owe you my life. And more than that, I owe you an apology. For everything. For the chores I made you do. For mocking you. For letting my mother's poison into my heart. I thought beauty made me special. I thought I deserved more. She looked away, tears in her eyes. But you were the one who was truly special. You saw what was right. And you saved me, even when I didn't deserve it. Amoni stepped forward and gently took Ruwa's hands. We both survived that night. We both saw what greed can do. That makes us sisters, not by blood, but by fire. Ruwa wept, and for the first time in her life, she knelt at someone's feet, not out of fear, but out of gratitude. From that day on, she changed. She helped with the chores. She rose early with Amoni to fetch water and sat beside her at the river. She learned to cook, to mend nets, to wash clothes with care. And though she struggled at first, the villagers began to notice. The girl who once walked with her chin in the clouds now walked humbly beside her sister. And they began to speak of Ruwa with new words: redeemed, forgiven, kind. As for Amoni, her light only grew brighter. People came to her with their troubles, their questions, their quiet hopes. Mzitando visited often, sitting under the shade to sip palm tea and share quiet wisdom. You carry balance within you, he told her one day. Not every warrior uses a blade. Some carry peace like a weapon, and it protects everyone around them. It was during one of these visits that a stranger came to the village. His name was Baraka. A traveler, a merchant of spices and stories. He arrived on foot, carrying baskets of fragrant herbs and carved figurines from distant coast. He had eyes that noticed details others missed, and a laugh that came easily, but never unkindly. Amoni met him at the village square as he laid out his goods. She admired a small wooden pendant shaped like a tree. This is a tree from my homeland, Baraka said, smiling. They say it holds memories. Carve your name into it, and the tree remembers your story. And what if someone carves lies? She asked playfully. Then the tree waits patiently for the truth. Their conversation bloomed like spring flowers. Baraka returned again and again, staying longer each visit. He helped Kofu repair his fishing nets and joined Ruwa in gathering firewood. But it was with Amoni that he found peace. He admired her for her spirit, not for her beauty, though that was undeniable, but for her strength, her honesty, her way of speaking to even the smallest child with respect. One evening, by the firelight, he said simply, I would like to walk beside you. Wherever your path leads. And she smiled. So they were married. The wedding took place by the river, under the mango trees where Amoni and Ruwa had once hung laundry. Mzitando led the blessings, his voice clear and steady as he called upon the ancestors to watch over their union. The whole village came. There was singing, and drumming, and laughter. Children danced barefoot in circles. Women brought roasted yams, millet cakes, and sweet ginger tea. Kofu sat proudly near the fire, watching his daughter laugh with joy. Ruwa stood beside Amoni as her maid of honor, her face glowing, not with envy, but with pride. You deserve this, she whispered. All of it. Amoni squeezed her hand. So do you. In time, you'll find your own river. Later that evening, as the fire died down and the stars stretched above them, Amoni stepped away from the celebration to fetch water. The river was calm, its surface silver under the moon. Crickets sang softly in the reeds. As she bent to fill her jug, she felt a prickle at the back of her neck. She looked up. And there, across the water, half hidden among the reeds, was a serpent. Its body was long, black as ink, with eyes that shimmered faintly gold. It did not move. It only watched. Amoni froze, her heart steady. She knew who it was. She did not speak. She did not run. Instead, she nodded slowly. A silent gesture of forgiveness, not approval, not forgetfulness, but an offering of peace. The serpent blinked once. Then, with a ripple of water, it disappeared beneath the surface. Amoni stood for a long time, watching the ripples fade. Then she turned and walked back to the firelight. Seasons passed. Baraka and Amoni built a small home near the river, filled with laughter, herbs hanging from the ceiling, and children's drawings on the walls. Ruwa continued to live with Kofu, caring for him as he aged. She became a teacher to the village girls, showing them how to weave baskets, cook sweet porridge, and more importantly, how to be strong in spirit. People often said, those sisters, Amoni and Ruwa, they carry light wherever they go. And when Zitando grew old and prepared for his final journey to the mountains of his birth, he left his staff with Amoni. "You will know when the world needs its light again," he told her. And she did. And so the tale ends. The story of a girl who faced greed, magic, and betrayal with courage. The story of a sister once lost to pride, now reborn through humility. The story of a village that stood at the edge of darkness and chose light. And somewhere, deep in the forest, the Nkolo tree still stands. Whispering. Waiting. Remembering. Moral of the story. True strength lies not in beauty or power, but in kindness and courage. Even the lost can find their way, if love leads them home. And when you choose compassion over hatred, the ancestors smile.